Hello everyone, my name is Roy Jafari and I would like to welcome you to another video of the data mining series. In the previous video we talked about what is prediction, and we also talked about how prediction is different than forecasting. In this video we are going to specifically see how these two terms are related and different than one another, and what is the specific difference between forecasting and prediction in the context of data mining. So let's look at this slide. Alright, so in these slides we are going to have 4 items. We are going to have a small review of what prediction was from the previous video, and then we are going to put these two concepts, forecasting and prediction, next to one another. And then we will look at a very simple forecasting methodology that is used widely in many different domains, including the COVID case that we've all been dealing with. And we are also going to see how forecasting and prediction can be mixed under the flexible design of prediction. Alright, so what we talked about prediction was whenever we have a set of independent attributes and a dependent attribute, and we go about finding the relationship between the independent attribute and the dependent attribute in such way that it's going to help us to predict the future cases of the dependent attribute, then that is the prediction. We also talked about how this is going to be captured by algorithms, and there might be different algorithms that go about this capturing and packaging of these patterns that is going to be helpful for the prediction. So we did see that, for example, if we have a data, this is going to be our predictors or the independent attributes, and these are going to be target, what we want to predict. So these are what we saw in the previous video. But here, for prediction, that's really, the essence of prediction task, the connection between the independent attributes and the dependent attributes. As you remember, these were our predictors, and this was our target. So we would find an algorithm that would connect these two, find those patterns, right? But for forecasting, there is no mention of independent attributes. All we have is one dimension of time series data that these time series data are connected. These data points are connected to one another by the same sequence, right? So when we have such a data, look at this one. Every year we have a number of applications that Mississippi State University receives. So I'm referring to the example that we saw in the previous video, because there is a year consequence between these data objects. Then we can use forecasting methods to use this one dimension of data to project the future. Forecasting, all it does, since it is at the same interval, looks at the ups and downs. There are like seasonal trends, there are like locational trends, finds those trends in the data and project them about the future. So for example, I could do a visual forecasting. I could say, okay, there is patterns that is happening, so probably 2022 is going to be somewhere here, because I projected this visual forecasting. So whenever we use these ups and downs and these trends within the same time series data, that is forecasting. So for example, a very simple methodology you can use is called moving average. And moving average is always coupled with an n. Basically the number of data points that you want to use. So for example, the moving average here is n2. So if I want to have a prediction for 2022, so this is the data for 2020, this is the data for 2021. If I want the prediction for 2022, what I do, I grab these two values and then calculate their average, right? So basically the value is going to be, so the number of application in 2022 is going to be so the answer would become 17,198. So I just use a simple moving average, just using the last two data objects to come to a prediction. Basically I find this line here and I call this my prediction. So this is the prediction. Let's look at how it would look like if we use n equal to 5. So the answer is given here, but how it's going to be calculated is just taking these 5 last values, these 5s, and then calculating the average will give you this. And this has been shown here, right? So simple moving average is a very simple method of forecasting. We are not going to cover, at least for now, different methods of forecasting. What we're going to focus on in the near future videos, they're going to be focused on the prediction. But here we wanted to have a chance to sort of like show you what is the difference between forecasting and prediction, so you wouldn't be confused if you come across other things in different places that you read or you study. Before moving on from this moving average, I wanted to show you case that we've been using moving average in the past in the past years at least. If you have been looking at the COVID data, you have the daily number of cases, and also you have a moving average. You have the average 7-day average. That 7-day average is a moving average method to basically show the trend of the COVID cases, and at the same time it can be used as a pretty good predictor of the future. So for example, the predictor for the day after August 9 here would be the 7-day moving average, that we see a downward trend, which is a good thing, of course, for us. So moving on, how come I was able to do this prediction task using use a time series data for this prediction task? When we have a time series data, we could use a regression type or prediction type modeling to do the task. We have to look at each of those points as data objects, right? Those data objects do have a certain relationship with one another. They are in consecutive equal orders of the time from one another. But looking at it from the perspective of data object, we could also use prediction modeling to capture that. What we did in the previous video that you may not have noticed was we kind of had a mix of prediction and forecasting. This average number of applications from last 2 years, what is this? This is the simple moving average method when n is equal to 2, right? So we kind of have had a mix of forecasting and prediction. Because prediction is a more flexible task than forecasting, we brought some of the essence of forecasting, the last two, the average of the last two periods with the previous football year performance to be able to have a better predictor. So that's how we could go about maybe like mixing forecasting and prediction with using the flexible design of the prediction modeling. Lastly, I would want to remind you guys about this SMAN2, that was the code, simple moving average n equal to 2, that we had used in the previous video. And finally, as a summary to this video, the difference between prediction and forecasting is that prediction uses an algorithm, as you remember, an algorithm to find the relationship between independent and dependent attribute. But forecasting, there is no such independent attribute. There's just one time series, and within the time series, based on the patterns of ups and downs in the time series, the patterns that happen due to reasons, seasonal patterns, and all of those different things comes to project these patterns in the future and come to a prediction. Until the next video.